All right, guys. Well, thank you all for coming this morning. Just to remind you, my name is Will. I'm one of the anesthesia docs here. And this is going to be part 3 of the kind of health and wellness lecture series we've been doing this semester on how do we improve our lives, both here at work, but at home as well. We took a break last month to do some yoga stuff. If people are still interested in doing that in the mornings, I'm going to probably restart that up at the beginning of the year, but I'll send out an email or put up a flyer about that here before too long. But I wanted to focus on nutrition today because around the holidays, it's very easy to overeat and indulge in different treats and things because it's fun to celebrate those things. Also, as New Year's comes around, everybody, myself included, kind of wants to clean things up, and so we try to figure out how can we change our resolutions to have a healthier 2022 than 2021. This is super complicated because despite all the information out there, I think most of it comes down to unnecessary noise and misinformation about how you should eat a certain way, and other things are super unhealthy. Then you hear another camp say the exact opposite. So it's hard to really figure out what is the best strategy for yourself. The big thing, and why I think you should care and why I care about what we eat, is our bodies are made up literally of the things that we ingest through our mouths. So it's not just the energy that we get from our food, and it's not just our weight management, but our bodies really build ourselves up from the things that we ingest on a regular basis. So our GI tract actually turns itself over every 2 to 3 days, and that's all from the nutrients that we take into our bodies. Our bones will do this over the course of several years. So when you want to make yourself healthy, not just for today and tomorrow, but the long term and the lasting effects of your life, by putting high quality nutrients into your bodies now, you're going to set yourself up for health in the future. So what kind of holds us back from this? I think if you can remember back to the ones of you guys that are here for our movement talk, not having a specific plan or a specific goal set up really sets us up for failure. While vague ideas of saying, I want to lose weight or I want to be healthier are very well intentioned, if we don't have set parameters to how we're going to accomplish that, unfortunately they fall away as our willpower begins to wane. So for instance, if you wanted to do something from a nutrition standpoint and say by June 30th of 2022, I'd like to lose 10 pounds and get into the habit of bringing high quality home prepared meals to work every day. That's a specific goal. And we can then backtrack to the 3-month mark, to the 1-month mark, and even on a weekly or daily basis to say, am I doing things to reach that goal? And if not, how can I change my current strategy to make sure that I get there? So having a good, solid goal, I think, is one of the most important things to do. And if anybody's interested in talking about that later, just come find me and I can try to help you with figuring out how to best maximize your nutrition plans. So when we look at nutrition, the easy thing I think that a lot of people talk about is shopping around the perimeter of the grocery store and some of this low-hanging fruit. But what I want to concentrate on today is the 4 different types of things, the 4 different considerations you should have in nutrition itself. The first one is quantity of food. So this is where most of the information lies and most of our concentration is. So calories that we're taking in, the ratio of protein, carbohydrates, and fats, and even micronutrients such as vitamins and minerals. Because this is such a popular thing, I think it becomes very polarized in the media and through different nutrition camps where people will say that eating a vegan diet is the best or eating a all-protein diet is the best, high fat, low fat, and there's so much fighting and arguing on which way is the best, when in the reality, it's different for everybody. And even throughout your own life, your nutrition goals will change. So when you're a 20-year-old, your nutrition goals are going to be and needs will be different than when you're 40 and 60 and 80. So learning how to pay attention to your body and say, when I'm eating a certain type of food or a certain quantity of food, how do I feel? How do I sleep? How do I feel the next day? And getting to learn about yourself can really help improve your dietary goals. The way to do this is kind of like having a structured plan. Once we have this goal set out of where we want to take our nutrition, starting to pay attention to the food you're currently eating. Taking a mental note or even literally writing it down and saying, today my meals were super sporadic. I had no time for breakfast or lunch because I was so busy. In the future, you can say, on these busier days, how can I structure my eating better so that I'm not just grabbing whatever I can grab? Rather, I can have these plans in to either eat before I come to work or have something that I can quickly ingest, whether that is a bar or a shake or something that's easy to swallow so that you can get high quality nutrients into your body. If you really have no idea how to start looking at the quantity of your food, of what you're eating, the easiest thing to do is to try to eliminate, or as much as possible, any processed foods that you eat. So what normal foods are for our body are things that grow from the earth, or that were in the earth when they were growing, or things that used to have a heartbeat. So that's your meats, vegetables, fruits, legumes, potatoes, stuff like that. The problem with processed foods, although they're very tasty, is that they're full of additives, plant animal toxins, herbicides, pesticides, and then a lot of different preservatives such as these rancid vegetable oils that improve shelf life and enhance this kind of unnatural taste. But when you put that into your body, your GI tract thinks that that is poison, because unfortunately it is. Over time, our bodies, despite how good they are at regulating the stuff that we're bringing in to try to protect ourselves, get overwhelmed by these processed foods. And this leads to different things such as irritable bowel syndrome, constipation, diarrhea, gastroesophageal reflux disease, inflammatory bowel disorders, and unfortunately even systemic inflammatory issues, all because the foods that we're putting into our bodies maybe aren't as well thought out as we should. Now that is a hard habit to break, so you've got to make sure you grant yourself grace. Whenever you make big abrupt changes with your nutrition, or really with anything in life, that can lead to burnout. So I'm sure all of you guys either maybe have experienced this yourself or know someone who has, with going on to an extreme diet program or exercise program. When you're first starting it, you're really motivated and you say, hey, I'm going to do this, but then 2 to 3 weeks in, when life eventually comes back, that will wane away. So taking small steps is still taking large steps in your life to making yourself healthier, but give yourself the time and space so that you're not fighting this every little step of the way, but you're actually enjoying the process and reaping the rewards of eating better. And then as far as an eating strategy of like, should you eat meat or should you not eat meat, I think the easiest thing to do is to go with what you enjoy eating now. So if you guys like having animal products, which I certainly do, have those in your diet. Pay attention to what you're eating and see if your body's able to appropriately digest them. But that's okay. If you don't want to have meat, also totally fine. The nice thing about the internet is you can find a healthy eating plan that will literally fit any type of dietary needs you may or may not have. The big thing, though, is just picking one and trying to follow it the best that you can. Because, again, this goes back to the idea of having a set plan. If you say, hey, I'm going to kind of do this but not really pay much attention to it, a well-thought-out, mediocre plan is going to work much better than the perfect nutrition plan for you that you kind of half the time follow and half the time don't. So moving on to the next thing of nutrition is quality of food you ingest. And this has also gotten super confusing with marketing that's maybe made to mislead us to think that foods are healthier than they actually are. So when you go into a grocery store, you can almost get overwhelmed with the different advertisements on packaging and labels that say things like healthy and natural, and they may even have different colors such as greens and light blues to make you feel that this food is a little bit more earthy than it actually is. I think one of the best examples of this is if you try to go buy eggs in a grocery store. There's like 20 different types of eggs you can get. So they've got conventional eggs that are graded B, A, AA. You have organic eggs that are also graded the same way. There's free-range eggs, there's pasture-raised eggs, there's eggs with no added antibiotics or hormones on the chickens. There's vegetarian-fed chickens. There's all these different things to look at, and how the heck do you figure out what's healthy? Previously, several generations ago, you could look at the egg yolk color and say that, well, for the most part, a darker egg yolk meant that a chicken was able to free range, probably through a compost pile, getting some fruits and veggies, was eating some insects and some bugs off the ground and living a pretty good life. Companies have also figured that out and have started to supplement their chicken feed with these things called beta-carotenes. It's the same substance that you find in squash and carrots. Another word for them is xanthophiles, if you ever see that when you're reading labels. And that will artificially make these eggs look much darker, almost to the point of a dark orange or even a reddish color. It doesn't mean that they're unhealthy, but what it is I think a little bit misleading to say that these eggs and these chickens are treated really nicely and that they are full of health and vibrancy. So I'm not really an expert on eggs, but I think the best way to shop for those, or any foods that you're eating, is to know your source. And that starts with reading your labels. So looking at labels to see if there's any hidden toxins or additives or preservatives in them. There's a great YouTube video out right now talking about vegetable oils and how terrible those are for you as far as preserving shelf life for products. However, they're very unstable when heated and cooked. And so that causes a lot of free radical oxidation in our bodies. Now, free radical oxidation isn't bad. That's how we breathe and move throughout our environment. But it's kind of like that GI tract thing with processed foods. You can very easily overwhelm your body's ability to handle all of this extra inflammation and stress and breakdown, which causes you to feel sick. So learning to read labels is very important. The other thing is, if you can, shopping as locally as you possibly can. So going to things like the farmer's market down on Market Square when that's happening, going to the co-op stores, talking to people like Mark up in the PACU who raises his own cattle, and taking advantage of these people who have humane practices for your foods. Now that's very time consuming and can be expensive, so I totally understand that. But when you do go to Kroger or to whatever grocery store you shop at, making sure you look at the labels, and then you can look on the internet and see where these foods come from and the kind of growing practices or raising practices that they have. And that's a big step in the right direction to kind of taking ownership over what you're buying and kind of speaking with your dollars to promote better vitality through your nutrition. The third thing I want to talk about is timing, which that's another hot topic now with intermittent fasting and how you should eat your meals. So this all came about because our bodies have evolved to live on something called the circadian rhythm. The circadian rhythm tells us to be awake during the daytime and asleep at night. And for millennia, up until very recently, our species has adhered to this just like every other animal species on the planet. We have recently tried to outsmart or hack this system and ignore when we're tired because of productivity or other life stressors that we have. So we supplement that with coffee and extra lighting and things to keep us awake. Now, there's many different smaller internal clocks that also go along with the circadian rhythm, and our GI tract is no different. There are different people that will say that you should eat for a certain specific eating window during the day. So if you're not familiar with intermittent fasting, what that means is that for a certain time that you are awake, you are allowed to ingest food with calories, and then for the other time to try to stay away from it to give your digestive system a break. And the idea of this is awesome. So as humans, what we were evolved and designed to do is basically to live long enough to have offspring, and then after that, if the wheels fall off, so be it. So besides procreation, the other things we have